Would you send 27 frustrated texts to a coworker who missed a meeting? Uncle Mike remains calm but unyielding. Would you track your neighbor's social media activity? Or ask your friends about who they're having lunch with? Hey Paul, here's something never shown in romantic comedies. A 32-year-old man hiding in a bathroom stall, counting text messages like some pathetic teenager. 27. That's how many times my phone has buzzed in the last 40 minutes. If this were high fidelity, I'd create a top 5 list of the most embarrassing moments in adult relationships. This would probably rank somewhere between the time I cried during Toy Story 3 on our third date. In my defense, who wouldn't? And when I tried to impress her by making risotto, and ended up with something that looked like seawater and tasted even worse. The thing about Wendy is, when we met 8 months ago at the Daily Grind, yes, that's really what it's called, like we were extras in a bad rom-com, she seemed normal. Actually, better than normal. She wore a vintage Radiohead t-shirt and argued with the barrister about whether OK Computer or Kid A was the better album. I jumped in to defend the Bends, which was probably a mistake since real music lovers often think that's too predictable a choice. But she laughed instead of criticizing me. And that's how I knew she was different. The first few months felt like one of those montage sequences from every 90s rom-com. You know, the ones where couples run through parks and feed each other ice cream with Van Morrison playing in the background. Ours, though, involved a lot more pub quizzes. We nailed the music rounds, binge-watched indie films, and debated whether The Wire is truly the greatest TV show ever. It is, and I'll fight anyone who disagrees. I started thinking this might be it. The real thing. The kind of relationship that makes you understand why people write songs about love, instead of just watching Netflix and ordering takeout forever. I even started mentally listing wedding songs that wouldn't make us seem like total cliches. But then, something changed. It was like watching a great show. And halfway through season 2, the writers ran out of ideas and started reusing old plots. Wendy began treating my life as though she were directing it. But not in a Scorsese way. More like Michael Bay, where everything needs to be dramatic and intense. My phone became less of a phone and more like an electronic ankle bracelet. Every woman who appeared on my social media was suddenly a potential threat. Like I was starring in my own personal version of Fatal Attraction, minus the rabbit. Thank God I don't have pets. The real kicker? When her friends ignore her for days, it's because they're busy living their lives. But when I don't respond to a text within 10 minutes because I'm in a meeting, I might as well be plotting to overthrow a small government. The double standards are almost comical. In a dark way. Her friend Marcus can cancel plans last minute because he's going through something. But if I'm late due to traffic, you'd think I'd personally broken international law. I've started writing texts like I'm preparing a legal defense, complete with photos of where I am and witness statements from colleagues. So here I am, sitting in conference room B, watching my phone light up for the 27th time. And something inside me breaks. Not dramatically, but more like when you're watching a really long movie and suddenly realize you stopped caring about the plot an hour ago. I stand up, mumble something about a dental emergency, my get out of meetings free card, and head for the door. My colleagues probably think I'm having a midlife crisis, but that's ridiculous because I'm pretty sure those don't start until at least 35. Still, as I head to Wendy's place, I feel like John Cusack in every movie he made in the 80s. Except, instead of holding up a boombox, I'm ready to finally put one down. Hey there, this is Wendy. I've checked my phone exactly 47 times in the past hour. Not that I'm counting, except I totally am. That's what you do when your boyfriend is clearly ignoring you and might be dead in a ditch somewhere. Or worse, having lunch with that redhead from marketing who always wears those ridiculous designer shoes that probably cost more than my rent. The thing is, I'm not crazy. I'm really not. I just happen to be the kind of person who likes to know things. Like whether my boyfriend is actually in his very important client meeting, or if he's ignoring me because I might have overreacted last week when he went for drinks with his college friends without texting me for 5 whole hours. 6:47 p.m. Still no reply. I've reorganized my entire sock drawer by color, cleaned the microwave, which was horrifying by the way, and written 3 different versions of an email to my boss about taking next Friday off. Anything to avoid sending that 20th text message that's burning a hole in my brain. When he finally walks in, I'm ready for a fight. My hands are shaking, and my heart's doing this weird flip that feels distinctly unhealthy. Except he starts with, "We need to talk." And my perfectly rehearsed speech about his inconsiderate behavior dies in my throat. "You're being completely unreasonable," I snap, cutting off whatever he was about to say. 27 messages. That's because I care about you. I was worried. Do you have any idea what it's like sitting here not knowing if you're okay? That's exactly the problem, he says in that annoyingly calm voice. You don't send 27 messages to anyone else when they don't respond immediately. You don't track their social media or question their friendships. How dare you? The words explode out of me. I can't believe you're turning this around on me. You're the one who's been ignoring me all day. You're the one who's always too busy with work or your precious female friends. Listen to yourself, he says, still maintaining that maddening calm. Jessica doesn't answer your calls for days, and you say she's busy. Marcus cancels plans last minute, and you say he needs space. I miss one text because I'm in a meeting, and suddenly I'm cheating. That's different. I'm practically screaming now, pacing my living room like a trapped animal. They're just friends. You're my boyfriend. You're supposed to put me first. You're supposed to care enough to let me know where you are. No, I'm supposed to be equal, he interrupts. Not your possession, not someone you control. He takes a deep breath, and I hate how reasonable he sounds, like he's explaining something to a child. You treat everyone else in your life with respect and understanding. But with me, it's all demands and accusations. I can't live like this anymore. You're being ridiculous. My voice is rising more desperate. If you just answered your phone like a normal person doesn't need their partner to report their whereabouts every hour. He cuts in. A normal person trusts their partner. You trust your friends, you trust your colleagues, but you don't trust me. And I'm done trying to prove myself worthy of what you freely give everyone else. I want to scream, throw things, make him understand that he matters more, because losing him scares me. But all I manage to say is, if you leave, don't bother coming back. I won't, he says quietly, and walks out. The door clicks behind him. The door slammed shut with a finality that felt almost like a physical blow. I stood there frozen for what seemed like hours, though it was probably only minutes. Then I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling with anger. In seconds, my friends were rallying around me with messages of encouragement. He's clearly intimidated by a strong woman, Jessica said, who took 3 days to reply to my last text. Men can't handle emotional intelligence, Sarah added, who regularly forgets our plans until the last minute. You deserve someone who values your loyalty, Marcus chimed in. The same Marcus who ignored me for an entire week because he was going through stuff. They were right. They had to be right. Because the idea that Paul might be right about my double standards is unthinkable. I curled up on the couch, surrounded by sympathetic messages from people I never demand explanations from. People whose absences I accept without a second thought. People who receive all my understanding, while Paul got none of it. But I pushed those thoughts aside. I'm the victim here. He's the one who left. He's the one who couldn't handle a caring, devoted girlfriend. He's the one with the problem. Not me. Never me. They say breaking up is difficult. Neil Sedaka built an entire career off that sentiment. Though I doubt he ever had to deal with the horror of the LinkedIn People You May Know feature, which constantly suggests my ex's profile. It's been 3 months, and the algorithm seems determined to remind me that Wendy just got certified in project management. Good for her. I hope she manages her projects with less intensity than she managed my social life. The strange thing about breaking up is how quickly relief replaces guilt. It's like in The Shawshank Redemption, when Andy crawls through 500 yards of sewage and emerges clean on the other side. Okay, maybe that's a bit dramatic. My relationship wasn't exactly a prison, but the sense of freedom feels surprisingly similar. I know this because I've watched Shawshank 17 times, most recently during what I've dubbed my post-breakup cinema therapy. I've been doing all the things you're supposed to do after a breakup, like hitting the gym twice, which is twice as much as I did last year, and reconnecting with friends who probably thought I'd joined some kind of relationship cult. Tom actually hugged me when I showed up at our regular pub quiz night. Though that might have been because I'm the only one who knows all the pre-1980s music questions. Work has become surprisingly enjoyable now that I'm not checking my phone every 3 minutes like some sort of telecommunications addict. Last week, I actually got through an entire client presentation without a single vibration in my pocket. It felt like a superpower. And then there's Melinda. She started in the office about a month ago. And no, this isn't going to turn into one of those rebound relationship stories that rom-coms love so much. We're just friends, the kind of friendship that doesn't require GPS tracking or hourly status updates. Melinda is the kind of person who can quote both The Office and Orwell in the same sentence, which is either incredibly pretentious or borderline genius. I haven't decided which. She borrowed my spare headphones last Tuesday and didn't return them until Thursday. And you know what? I didn't send her a single text asking where they were. We get lunch sometimes and talk about everything from bad 90s movies to her theories on why cats are actually aliens. Which, by the way, is surprisingly convincing. It's nice. Normal. The kind of interaction that doesn't feel like you're constantly defusing a bomb in an action movie. The contrast is almost laughable. Last week, I had to cancel a meetup with Melinda because I had an unexpected meeting. She just said, "No problem," and went on with her day. A year ago, that kind of response would have seemed as impossible as a good Die Hard sequel after the third one. Yesterday, I ran into Marcus at the supermarket. He did that awkward shuffle people do when they're not sure if they should mention your ex. Finally, he cracked. "Wendy's been asking about you." You know that moment in movies when the main character has a flashback montage of their relationship? I had one of those, except instead of soft focused memories of romantic moments, it was just a series of scenes of my phone buzzing like an angry hornet. "She's working on herself," Marcus added, carefully arranging his frozen pizzas like they were priceless artifacts. Good for her, I said, and meant it. The same way I mean it when I say I'm happy. The Smiths broke up before they could make a bad album, or that Firefly was cancelled before it could jump the shark. Sometimes things end exactly when they're supposed to. Later that evening, while Melinda and I were debating whether Back to the Future holds up, it does, over takeout in the break room, I realized something. I'm not just surviving post-Wendy life. I'm actually living it. There's a difference. It's like when you've been watching TV in standard definition for years and then suddenly switch to HD. Everything's clearer, sharper, more real. I still have her napkin doodles in my wallet. I should probably throw them out or file them away with other artifacts from past relationships, like the mixtapes from college that I'll never listen to, but can't quite bring myself to get rid of. But maybe I'll keep them as a reminder, not of what I lost, but of what I've gained. But what I gained by walking away. Freedom, it turns out, doesn't resemble a power ballad or a movie ending. Sometimes it's just the simple satisfaction of letting your phone battery die without feeling panic. Family gatherings feel like those reality TV shows where they throw random people into a house together. Someone is bound to ask an awkward question, triggering an emotional meltdown. Today's designated truth teller is Uncle Mike, just back from his consulting gig in Singapore, carrying jet lag and no filter. As he helps himself to a third serving of Mum's lasagna, he asks, "Where's Paul?" I liked that guy. He understood my jokes about quantum physics. The table falls silent. Mom suddenly becomes very interested in her napkin. Dad starts coughing suspiciously, and my sister gives me that look, the one she's perfected over years of my relationship chaos. We broke up, I say, stabbing a cherry tomato with unnecessary force. He couldn't handle commitment. Uncle Mike raises an eyebrow. Is that what happened? He asks. Yes, I insist, though the red juice from the tomato spreading across my plate suddenly feels very accusing. He was unreasonable about everything, I continue. I just wanted basic communication, normal relationship stuff. Like the 27 text messages you sent him during his client meeting? My sister mutters, yelping as I kick her under the table. Uncle Mike puts down his fork. Funny thing about communication, he says. Last week, your Aunt Rita was an hour late to the dinner meetup, and you told me you just figured she was busy and didn't want to bother her. That's different, I start. But Uncle Mike isn't done. Something uncomfortable starts squirming in my stomach. And it's not just the lasagna. Would you send 27 angry texts to a colleague who missed a meeting? Uncle Mike presses, gentle but unyielding. Would you track your neighbor's social media activity, or question your friends about who they're having lunch with? No, I answer, though I already know where he's going. Then why did you do it to someone you claim to love? His question lands like a slap. I push my chair back, ready to storm out in classic Wendy fashion, but something stops me. Maybe it's the tired wisdom in Uncle Mike's eyes. Maybe it's the memory of Paul's face that last day, exhausted, sad, and so incredibly reasonable. 2 weeks later, I find myself in Dr. Gomez's office. She has this way of looking at you as though she's reading a fascinating book, and the book is your tangled mind. Control isn't love, she says, and I want to argue, but I'm trying this new thing called listening. You gave everyone else in your life the grace to be human, except Paul. That's when I see them. Paul and someone new, walking out of that little coffee shop where we first met. She's wearing a vintage font shirt, just like I did that day. But unlike me, she's laughing at something he said, not checking her phone even once. They look peaceful, that's the word. Like two people existing in the same space without trying to own each other's air. I don't text him. I don't march over and make a scene. I simply watch them disappear around the corner, and something inside me clicks into place. At the next mutual friend's birthday party, I spot him across the room. Our eyes meet, and I manage a smile that doesn't feel like it will shatter my face. He nods back, a simple acknowledgement of shared history and lessons learned. You seem different, Beth tells me later, as we're waiting for our Ubers. More relaxed. I am different these days. I let my phone die without panicking. I don't expect instant replies to my texts. When my new date mentions a female colleague, I don't immediately Google her name and scroll through 5 years of social media history. It's not perfect. Sometimes the old urges return, the need to know, to control, to demand. But now I recognize them for what they are. Fear dressed up as love. Slowly, with each therapy session and moment of self-reflection, I'm learning the difference between holding on and letting things grow. Uncle Mike was right. Love shouldn't require constant surveillance.